I'm Buck. Recently, I've noticed a pattern in the questions I receive, a collective anxiety regarding what to do with surplus capital. In my last video, we dissected the 7% rule to decide between renting or buying, and the response was massive, but it left an open wound. Many of you are losing sleep, staring at the ceiling at night, wondering if you should use every extra dollar to destroy your mortgage, or if you should entrust that hard-earned sweat to the stock market. It is the eternal battle between the emotional relief of owing nothing and the mathematical greed of watching compound interest go to work. What I notice is that this decision is rarely about numbers. It's about your relationship with security and fear. The system wants you to feel guilty for having debt, while banks profit from your rush to return the money they lent you at rates that, today, look like a gift. To be psychologically broken is to live in doubt, without a clear framework to decide your next sovereign step. Today, I'm going to give you that framework, dissecting real scenarios and raw numbers so you can stop guessing and start governing. In this conversation, we are going to explore what I call the F-squared rule, the balance between financial freedom, financial, and emotional freedom, feelings. I'll show you why math isn't always the final answer, but why ignoring it could cost you $1 million in the long run. Get ready to face the shadow of your finances, desire for control that might be sabotaging your real wealth building. Let's transform this anxiety into a war strategy for your sovereign future. For this analysis to be useful, we need a real battlefield. Something I notice is the standard for the middle class today. Imagine a $500,000 mortgage with a 7% interest rate for 30 years. Your monthly payment for principal and interest alone is $3,327. After a year of sacrifice, you get a promotion at work and suddenly have $1,000 extra every month left over in your cash flow. The question burning in your mind is, should this money go to the bank to shorten the debt or to your brokerage account? This is the crossroads where most people get lost, trying to decide between two paths that seem equally logical on the surface. I notice that the system pushes you toward paying off the house because that reduces the bank's risk, not yours. Having an extra $1,000 is a privilege that carries immense responsibility for your future sovereignty. If you allocate this amount incorrectly for 20 years, the difference won't be a few dinners out. It will be your ability to retire with dignity or remain trapped on the hamster wheel. At this point, I utilize what I call the wise observer. For those just arriving, this is my practice of stepping back from the emotional noise to analyze the invisible patterns governing our choices. It's the ability to see the board from above, realizing how the bank structured the game so that you pay the maximum amount of interest possible in the early years. Observing the scenario from the outside, I realize that your rush to pay it off might just be your persona's desire to look debt-free to the neighbors, while your financial self remains fragile. Let's first look at the path of the pure investor, the one who decides that their capital is a soldier that must fight in the open market. If you take that $1,000 monthly and put it into a low-cost index fund that tracks the S&P 500, history tells us we can expect a nominal return of about 10%. To be sober and conservative, we'll use 9% in our calculations. Furthermore, we'll apply a 3% annual increase to this contribution, keeping up with the natural growth of your income and protecting the value against inflation. Over the 29 remaining years of your mortgage, this mathematical discipline produces a result that I notice leaves people in shock. Approximately $1,834,000. Compound interest, when fed with consistency and time, becomes a gravitational force that creates wealth out of nothing. In this scenario, you keep your original mortgage, paying interest to the bank, but your army of dollars in the market grows much faster than your debt consumes. It is the victory of patience over short-term impulse. The first impression of this scenario is that the market return seems obvious and unbeatable, but I, Buck, notice that few people have the temperament to last 30 years without touching that capital. Investing requires you to accept volatility in exchange for a future premium, while paying off debt gives you an immediate, guaranteed psychological return. Sovereignty here is measured by your ability not to interrupt the compounding process. If you can stay the course, The math of pure investment is the fastest route to a seven-figure net worth. To understand why you feel so tempted to pay off the house, you need to understand the scam of amortization, something the system hides in the fine print of the contract. Imagine your debt divided into 10 blocks of $50,000. In the first year of your mortgage, you paid a total of $39,924 to the bank. However, the shocking reality I notice is that only $4,175 was used to reduce what you actually owe. The other $35,749 was handed directly to the bank's profit in the form of interest. In the first month, out of a $3,327 payment, about $2,917 is interest, and only $410 is principal, an 88% to 12% split. Even after 5 years of on-time payments, you will still be handing over $2,710 in interest every month. The system is designed so that the tipping point, where you pay more principal than interest, only happens around month 142, meaning more than 12 years after you sign the papers. This is why banks love 30-year mortgages and hate it when you pay them off early. They want your expensive money at the start of the contract. Buck, noticed that this structure is what generates the anxiety. You feel like you're running on a treadmill and going nowhere. Understanding the amortization table is like seeing the code of the Matrix. You realize the system is draining your financial vitality in the early years. Paying off early attacks this interest graph directly, but the opportunity cost can be even higher. Now, let's analyze the visceral attitude of someone who decides they no longer want to be a slave to the bank and throws the extra $1,000 directly at the principal. Applying the same 3% annual increase to this extra contribution, the results are dramatically different for your timeline. You would manage to pay off your mortgage in 16 years and 3 months, saving nearly 14 years of payments to the system. You would cease to be a debtor before your kids even start college. The raw interest savings in this scenario are what I notice attracts most people. You would pay about $318,000 in total interest versus $698,000 in the original plan. This means you kept $380,000 in your pocket instead of handing it to the bank. However, to be honest with the math, we must subtract the $238,000 you spent making those extra payments. Your real net profit for paying off the house early was $142,000. Comparing this net gain of $142,000 with the $1.85 million potential of investing, the difference starts to appear clearly. Paying off debt is a defensive strategy that focuses on avoiding a loss, while investing is an offensive strategy that focuses on capturing a gain. Buck observes that the security of a paid-off house is a very expensive safe harbor if the price is renouncing millions of dollars in future appreciation. However, the peace of mind of not having a $3,000 bill cannot be entirely ignored in the equation of life. For the comparison to be fair, we need to see what happens after the house is paid off in month 195. From that moment on, you no longer have the mortgage, so you have $4,327 free every month, $3,327 from the old mortgage, plus $1,000 from the extra contribution. If you invest this total amount into the stock market for the remaining 13.75 years until completing the 29 years of the original simulation, you would end up with about $1,186,000 in your brokerage account. The fruit of this late discipline, adding the $1,186,000 investment to the $142,000 in interest savings, your final net worth in this payoff first scenario would be $1,328,000. Now compare that to the $1,834,000 of the person who decided to invest from day one. The difference is approximately $506,000 in favor of the one who kept the debt and invested in the market. It is the $500,000 cost of having the title deed in your drawer 14 years earlier. This is the mathematical proof that time in the market is more valuable than the speed of debt repayment. Buck, noticed that most people underestimate the power of the first 10 years of compound interest. When you spend that time killing a 7% debt, you lose the most productive phase of capital growth. Real financial sovereignty often requires you to endure the discomfort of controlled debt to allow your net worth to reach a critical mass impossible to achieve any other way. But here, Buck needs to introduce the brutal reality that Excel spreadsheets ignore. The market does not deliver 9% in a linear and polite way every year. There is what we call sequence of returns risk. If you start investing and the market faces a lost decade, like what happened between 2007 and 2015, your annualized return could be as low as 4.5%. On the other hand, if you catch a golden cycle like 2009 to 2017, you could see returns of over 17%. The market is an unpredictable ocean. In contrast, paying off your 7% mortgage is a guaranteed tax-free return of 7%. There is no volatility, no market crash, and no fear. Every dollar paid reduces a certain cost. When we compare this to other safe options, paying it off shines. Savings accounts pay 4 to 5%, 10-year Treasury bonds yield about 4.5%, and high-quality corporate bonds deliver around 6%. Paying off the mortgage is the best fixed income investment available on the market today. I notice that sovereignty requires you to understand what kind of risk you are willing to carry. If you invest everything in the S&P 500, you are betting on global human productivity against the bank's mathematical certainty. Paying off debt is a form of chaos insurance, as a house without a mortgage drastically reduces your cost of survival if the market collapses. The wise observer knows that real wealth isn't just the biggest number on the screen, but the biggest number that allows you to sleep in peace during a recession. Since I notice that personal finance is, above all, personal, I don't believe in one-size-fits-all answers. That's why I apply the F-squared rule, a split strategy that seeks to optimize both the math and your nervous system. The idea is not to be an extremist. We don't need to choose a single side. We can create a capital split framework that fits your stage of life and the interest rate environment we are in. There are 3 main ways to apply the F-squared rule: 60-40 split, 60% of the extra goes to investments, and 40% to paying down the house. This is the approach for those who want to grow but want to see the debt shrink. 50-50 split, the perfect balance. Half for the future, half for the roof over your head. Age-based split. If you're young, use 70-30 to focus on time in the market. If you're 10 years from retirement, use 30-70 to clear your fixed costs. My favorite compass, however, is the interest rate rule. If your mortgage is above 8%, prioritize the payment. The guaranteed return is too high to ignore. If it is below 4%, prioritize the investment. The money is cheap, and the market will pay you to hold on to it. If it is between 4% and 8%, do both. This is the zone where the F-squared rule shines, ensuring you don't miss the chance to be a millionaire nor the security of owning your own soil. Let's see how the F-squared rule works in practice with a 500/500 split of your extra $1,000. Both contributions grow by the same 3% per year. On the debt side, this constant injection of capital causes your mortgage to be paid off in about 21 years, saving 9 years of interest and generating a net savings of approximately $79,000. You aren't as fast as the aggressive payer, but you're still far ahead of the bank's original schedule. On the investment side, your $500 monthly growing at 9% for 29 years turns into $842,000. And here comes the master move. After the house is paid off in year 21, you take the total amount you were using for housing and throw it into the investment for the remaining 8 years. This adds another $462,000 to your pile. The final result of the 50-50 strategy is a net worth of $1,383,000. Observe the trade-off that I, Buck, notice here. You end up with about $450,000 less than if you had invested everything, but you have your house paid off 9 years earlier. It is the price you pay for risk diversification. You protected your future with the stock market and protected your present with the house amortization. For many, this middle path is true sovereignty, because it eliminates a single point of failure and calms both the ego and the financial self. There are times when Buck recommends that you forget the stock market and focus entirely on destroying the debt. The first case is the obvious one: high interest debt. If you have credit cards or personal loans with rates above 10%, the stock market is a dangerous distraction. You're trying to run a marathon with a metal anchor tied around your neck. Clear the ground first, regain your maneuvering room, and only then think about investing. The second case is when you are close to retirement, say 10 years or less from stopping work. At this stage, your greatest asset is not appreciation, but cash flow. Entering retirement without the fixed cost of a mortgage drastically reduces the amount you need to withdraw from your investments, increasing the durability of your portfolio. It is the time to shift from offense to defense, ensuring your territory is protected against storms you won't have time to recover from. Finally, consider the payoff if you live in an industry with chronic instability or if the debt causes you genuine stress. I notice that some people have a psychological allergy to debt that affects their health and relationships. If the weight of the bill prevents you from being a creative professional or present partner, pay off the house. No Excel spreadsheet is worth a nervous breakdown or a divorce. Financial sovereignty must serve your life, not the other way around. On the other hand, the scales should tip toward investment when you have what are called golden rates. If you refinanced your home in 2020 or 2021 and have an interest rate of 3% or 3.5%, paying off that debt is mathematical madness. You are returning capital to the bank that they gave you almost for free, while any government bond today pays more than that. In these cases, the debt is an asset. You're using the bank's money to make money in the real world. Furthermore, never prioritize paying off the house if you don't have a solid emergency fund of 6 to 12 months. Money trapped inside the walls of the house is a liquid. If you lose your job, the bank won't let you eat the kitchen tiles. Similarly, ensure you are maximizing your retirement contributions, like the 401k match, which is a 100% guaranteed return. Ignoring the match to pay the mortgage is trading gold for bronze. Buck notices that if you are young and have time on your side, investment should be your primary focus. In your 20s and 30s, every dollar invested has the potential to multiply 10 or 20 times before you retire. Mortgage amortization has a linear return, but the stock market has an exponential return. Don't waste the most powerful phase of compound interest trying to kill a debt that inflation will take care of shrinking for you over the decades. At the end of the day, I need you to understand that an Excel spreadsheet is not the complete story of your life. There's a difference between winning financially and winning at life. For some, homeownership is the ultimate symbol of success, the realization of the dream. For others, a 30-year mortgage is a ball and chain that limits mobility and freedom of choice. I notice that sovereignty is about having the clarity to know which of these groups you fit into before committing your capital. There are two types of people who feel trapped: those trapped by debt and those trapped by illiquid assets. The first group can't sleep because they owe the bank. The second group has a paid-off mansion but no liquidity to take advantage of a business opportunity or take an emergency trip. Both are in captivity. The F-squared rule is an optimization framework to ensure you become neither, maintaining the balance between solid equity and the flexibility of available capital. The wise observer notices that peace of mind is often used as an excuse for the intellectual laziness of not wanting to understand the numbers. But it also notices that mathematical arrogance can lead to a life of unnecessary stress. The sovereign decision is the one you make intentionally, knowing exactly what you are gaining and what you are leaving behind. Don't let finance gurus or your parents decide what security means for you. Define your own freedom and use money as the tool to execute it. I'm Buck. My challenge for you today is simple, but it requires brutal honesty. Define what financial freedom means to you personally. Don't follow what your friends say at dinner on Saturday or what YouTube gurus shout. If your vision of freedom is having the title deed in your hand and your cost of living at rock bottom, go all in on early payoff. If your vision is having a massive portfolio that allows you to live anywhere in the world, go all in on investing. Both choices are valid as long as they are intentional. The final truth is that there is no single right answer. There is only your answer based on your values and your stage of life. The system wants you to follow a predefined trail, but the sovereign creates their own map. I confess that even after years of observing the market, I still struggle with this question. Logic tells me to invest, but the protective instinct sometimes whispers to pay it off. This tension is what keeps us alert and conscious that money is a useful servant, but a terrible master. If this look at the F-squared rule and financial sovereignty made sense to you, I invite you to follow this channel and become part of this circle of minds seeking real wealth and independence. Leave your comment below. Are you on Team Total Investment or Team Accelerated Payoff? Keep your numbers clear and your soul free. I'm Buck, and you can count on me. Until the next chapter.